My parents cropped me out from the family portrait. No explanation. No apology. Just a perfect frame with a me-shaped hole. So I slid an envelope across the holiday table and watched their faces turn white before dessert. I came for Christmas. Not because I missed you. Not because I forgive. Just because it was time to make a point, even if it meant first re-entering a house where you've been considered a guest since the moment you started talking out loud. My parents' house looked like it usually did, clean to the point of sterility, like a hospital with expensive interiors. A Christmas tree in the same color scheme, a monogrammed tablecloth, candles smelling of orange, and something they call cozy. I was greeted politely like a clerk in a bank. No hugs, no "how was your flight?" No "we're glad to see you." But my mom did ask me if I'd remember to take my shoes off in the lobby. So much for love, I'll give you that. I walked into the living room, and that was it. The cold didn't hit my skin, it hit my diaphragm. Above the fireplace, a family photo. A new one, large, framed under glass. It shows my father in his duty dad jacket, my mother with perfect styling, and Claire, radiant as if forever in the light. My younger clone, only without the guilt and with a lifetime pass for approval. And I wasn't there. No, not I was forgotten. Not called. My face carved out. It's flat. All that's left is part of my shoulder and elbow. The rest is a hole. A rectangular shadow in between, like a place where a person should be, but decided the frame was better without one. I stood and watched. No one noticed. "Would you like some cocoa?" shouted my mom from the kitchen. "We got some with almond milk, just the way you like it." Almond milk was all they remembered about me. "Oh, by the way," Claire added, entering with the phone in her hand, "remember when I said I wanted to go to Orem? I got hired. For an internship. And a watch from them too, by the way. My dad arranged it. I'll show you later." Of course Dad did. Claire's always been an investment project. I'm more of a write-off. I didn't say anything. I looked at my cut-out face and thought, to cut someone out of a photo you have to print out the picture first, take out a knife, carefully cut along the outline without tearing the background, without hurting the others. That's not forgetfulness. It's surgery. It's work. When I turned around, my father was already sitting by the fireplace with a glass of whiskey. He nodded as if I'd entered his office uninvited. I went up to the guest room. Not mine. Mine was gone. Claire's closet was there now. My books thrown out. Posters off the walls. Even the smell of my childhood was gone. Everything smelled of air conditioning and lavender sachets, as if no one had ever lived in the room. There was a sign on the nightstand that said, "Welcome, dear guests." Just like a motel with bad reviews. I sat down on the bed, pulled an envelope out of my bag. It was thick, formal. I held it in my hands like a weapon. Inside, not a bomb. Worse. Papers. The will. Financial papers. All the seals, all the signatures, all lined up to the letter. Legally, you can't argue with that. Emotionally, even more so. It's been under my coat since October. And I knew that at some point I'd have to choose. Either I'd go back to being a shadow that was conveniently invisible, or they would find out that I was no longer their convenient zero in the ledger called family. The next morning, we handed out presents under the tree, as usual. Claire the gold. I'm the mug. A mug that said, "Someone's favorite daughter." I don't know if they were trying to convince me or themselves. "It's pretty, isn't it?" Mom asked, with the sincere enthusiasm of someone who had driven a nail in and now considered himself an interior designer. "Very symbolic," I said, putting the mug back in the box. "The inscription is almost true. Just not yours." Everyone pretended not to hear. Claire chatted about her trip to Miami. Dad clicked the remote. Mom offered cocoa again. I watched them like a biologist observing cell life under a microscope. They existed in the absolute certainty that everything was fine. That everything was under control. That I am still the same one who doesn't ask, doesn't argue, doesn't demand. The one that could be cut out of a photograph and no one would ask why. They thought I didn't say anything because I didn't care. In fact, I kept quiet so they'd think they could get away with it. They were wrong. The whole gift circus went on with the background hum of a Christmas playlist of Bing Crosby singing like he didn't have a family capable of ignoring you so professionally like that. I sat on the couch with a mug, which by the way they hadn't even bothered to wash before packing. There was a 99 cents price tag stuck to the bottom. Dad, as usual, told jokes that no one listened to because everyone had heard them already, and Mom pretended to laugh. Claire was flipping through Instagram and occasionally blurting out something like, "Oh, look how cute," even though no one was looking. And to be honest, I wasn't looking either. I just sat there, observing, memorizing. I remember going to my high school graduation alone. No flowers, no balloons, no picture of the flag. My mom said she didn't like crowds, and my dad said it was his graduation day. Claire was flying to London that evening for language school, at the family's expense, of course, and I was in a cab back to my rented room with my diploma in a bag as if I'd bought it at a discount. It all came back not as drama, but as accounting. Just the facts, one after another, and none in their favor. When my mom called for lunch, I didn't get up right away. I looked at myself in the mirror in the hall, the reflection of the woman they were trying to rewrite, to cross out, to replace, to erase. But all they'd done was clear a path for me, to the documents, to the truth, to myself. I went downstairs, sat at the table, and politely ate what they called dinner. Indie breasts with dry breast, potatoes that looked like plaster, and gravy that could be used as construction glue. In this house, even the food was pretend, just like everything else. Under the table in my bag was an envelope, a thick one, heavy, alien like everything else around it. They talked, they laughed, they ate. It was like I'd been cut out of not only the picture but the evening. And in a way it was a relief, because it was in that void where there should have been room for me that I saw clearly for the first time. There never was. They hadn't lost their daughter. They had simply rented her out, along with a house to which I would never again return unrecognized. That night I couldn't sleep for a long time. Not because I was angry, the anger had left years earlier. What remained was silence. But not the kind of silence that's deafening, but the kind where you can finally hear yourself. I stared at the ceiling and thought, they didn't make me strong. They made me lonely. And I chose which of those things to keep. After that Christmas, I didn't come home. Not in an emotional sense, in a legal sense. Home stopped being a place you want to come back to when you realize that your residency there was pure fiction. Ironically, it was the legal papers that gave them away. You know what they say, you want to know the truth, open the registry. I wasn't looking for the truth. I was looking for something else entirely, copies of my financial records. The new job required complete transparency. I filled out the form, checked my tax records, and here was a surprise. An address I hadn't given popped up on the property registry page. The neighborhood looks familiar. A little too familiar. Grandfather's house. I blinked. I logged in again. And again. No mistake. It says in black and white, I'm the owner. Sarah J. Lawson. Landlord is my parents. The rental income was neatly deposited into an account linked to their IP account. Tenants are an upstanding family with 2 kids and a dog. Everything's clean, legal, cultured. Except no one notified the owner, me. They didn't just forget. They made an effort. They put my signature on the contracts, or rather, forged them. They registered the papers through an old lawyer friend of mine, Uncle Harold, who, by a strange coincidence, had always been untouchable in family discussions. And then, they just collected the income year after year. And of course, poor Claire was in need. Creativity doesn't feed. I got an electric shock. Not from anger. Clarity. They knew. Every one of them knew I was the owner. They used my name, my right, my trust. Not because they didn't know, but because they were sure I would never ask. I thought maybe I should talk to them directly. But then I remembered what my room looked like at Christmas. How I was looked at through. How they handed me a mug as if I wasn't a daughter, but a souvenir from a cheap shop. And that's when I realized, it's not a mistake. It's a system. I gathered everything. I printed copies, filed a request with the registry, got notarized proof of inheritance. Grandpa's will, dated January 8, 2017. The house on Pine Street passes to granddaughter Sarah J. Lawson. Full ownership, no restrictions. I didn't even see it. They didn't show it. And now I knew. Not because they told me. It was because I found it. And when you find something like that, there's no turning back. For a week afterward, I lived in smoke. I didn't cry. I didn't freak out. I just collected. Document after document. Confirmation after confirmation. And then she put it all in one thick, cream-colored envelope. Not as a threat. As a fact. As an answer. They left me no choice. You know, when you get past, let's just live peacefully, and into let's just live honestly. They're not gonna like that. And that's not my problem. I didn't retaliate. I just got mine back. I started to remember. Not dramatically, not with a violin background, but by the score. Like an accountant. As an auditor of the family's machinations. I remembered how I'd been turned down for help my freshman year, saying, "You've always done well. Let's not interfere with your growth." Yet Claire went on a design course in Barcelona that same year because she needed to find herself. She did, by the way, for my square footage. Then I remembered the day when I had to urgently pay for health insurance. I was turned down. "We're not able to right now, you're an adult." A week later, Claire posted selfies in her new salon with the caption, "Mom's care is priceless." The salon, by the way, is in my house. My fucking house. I remembered how Grandpa always called me the one with the head. He'd said himself that he wanted this house to be my start. I thought those were just words. Turns out he really formalized it. It's just that my parents decided that starter was a convenient entry point into someone else's money. I took it a step further. Pulled up the bank statements. It all adds up. Every quarter their rent comes into their account. It's not huge, but it's steady. Meanwhile, I was living in an apartment with a leaky ceiling and cockroaches because independence is strength. You have no idea how I felt sitting over that stack of papers. Not revenge. No, just silence. Peace. Like when you turn off the fan after years of noise, and you hear yourself for the first time. I decided this time they'd hear me too. I bought a new envelope. Cream. It's heavy. I put everything in it. The will, copies of statements, notary certificates, a request from the registry, bank statements. Not a single emotion. Just the facts. Here's your mirror, dear. Look, admire. I knew they'd have the usual parade of hypocrisy for Christmas. Candles, china, jokes no one listens to. I'll be there. I'll come in. I'll sit them at the table. And I'll put this envelope between the turkey and the cranberry sauce. And let them try not to read it. And then it'll be what it's supposed to be. No tantrums. No screaming. Just the truth. Just the voice that was cut out of the picture but couldn't be erased from the property registry. They won't like it. Thank God. As I signed the change of ownership application at the registry office, the woman behind the counter asked, "Is this your first property?" I smiled. "The first one I'm officially getting back." She didn't say anything, but she looked at me as if she understood. Women our age understand. Especially the ones with the family values fatigue and quotation marks in their eyes. I sat in the car with this packet of papers in my lap and felt strangely calm. Not elation. Not relief. But just like someone had finally taken off someone else's coat that you've worn your whole life because that's the way it is. A few days before Christmas, I gave notice to the tenants. Politely. Honestly. I wasn't going to kick them out. On the contrary, I offered them a new rate, lower than the current rate. They were shocked, then grateful. They said that for the first time in many years they felt that a human being was talking to them, not an accountant. I said, "Believe me, so do I." And then I put the whole package in a new envelope. And I put it in my bag. Along with the train ticket. Along with the truth that was now mine. I wasn't going to be revengeful. I was going to be. There was the table, the china, the family lies ahead. But I already knew. My name was back on the document. And it would be there forever. This time when I arrived, I wouldn't ask for a seat at the table. I'll bring my own. And this time I'll sit comfortably. I walked into the house with an envelope in my hand. Not in my pocket, not in my bag. In my hand. Apparently I wanted it to be felt. For everyone to see it, even if they pretended not to notice. My mother greeted me like an Airbnb hostess. A smile, a slight tilt of her head. A casual "come on in, we've been expecting you." My father said nothing at all. He just took my coat as if I were a delivery boy, not their daughter. Claire flashed up the stairs in a new cashmere sweater, which I recognized from the collection because I'd seen it in the window when I was deciding whether to buy food or pay for the lights. I walked silently into the dining room. Everything was already set up. China, napkins and rings, name cards. I was seated on the edge. Not in the center, not across from anyone. In a corner where the camera wouldn't pick up. They talked, laughed, talked about how Claire was in some fashion show. Dad said a toast where he mentioned family values and support. I almost laughed. Then I put the envelope on the table. Better open it later, I said. Oh, what's this? Mom took it as if I'd given her a jar of jam. She didn't listen. Of course she didn't. Opened it. First thing that came out was a copy of the will. Then the papers. Statements. Disbursements. All neatly organized. She leafed through until she came across a box that read, Title Sarah J. Lawson. What's this? Her voice grew thin. Her father stepped forward. Looked at it. He turned pale. Claire giggled. Is this a joke? A new way to make a scene? It's not a joke, I said. This is a house. It's mine. It's been here for 8 years. Mother put the papers down. We thought. You were busy. We didn't want to distract you. It's just decorating. Nothing serious. Father added. You always said you didn't want a home. You wanted freedom. I wanted the truth, I said. But you decided it was more comfortable without it. There was silence. Not theatrical. Stiff as concrete. This wasn't about the money, was it? Claire asked. I turned to her. No. This is about you. Dad tried to take the papers. I put my hand on top. Don't. You've already taken enough. He jumped up. If you leave now, don't come back. Fine, I stood up. For the first time we agreed on something. I walked out without slamming the door. I just left. No scene. No final chord. No looking back. And then there was silence. Not inside me, outside. The phone was silent. Not a single call. And then the messages. Neutral at first. You've got it all wrong. We need to talk. Then the emotional ones. You've ruined the family. I hope you're happy. I didn't answer. I wasn't going to be a convenient backdrop for their guilt. After a month I changed the locks. Notified the tenants. Made contact with the lawyers. It was official. My parents tried to argue, and quickly realized that paperwork is stronger than tears. This was my home now. For the first time, for real. First thing I did was get off the map. Deleted from family chat, deactivated geometry. Unsubscribed from anything that smelled like their life. Some people consider that radical. I consider it hygiene. The house they used as an ATM became my place of recovery. I went there alone, no suitcases, no solemnity. I just took the key, put it in the lock and walked in. The door clicked open as if it had been waiting a long time. Inside it was neat, almost cozy. The tenants were decent. They'd left a letter. Thank you for lowering the rent. We wish you peace and warmth. I didn't cry, but my fingers twitched as I put that letter on the shelf. I started small. I bought myself a chair, the first one I picked out myself, without asking if it would fit the style. I repainted the walls the color Grandpa always liked, deep green, like a forest after a rainstorm. Planted a cedar tree by the door. Not a symbol. Just a tree that would grow as I did, without their approval. My parents, of course, wouldn't give up. They wrote, "You've changed. We don't recognize you." I didn't bother them. Let them get used to it. Claire tried to call. Once. Then she limited herself to stories with cryptic captions. Sometimes family is poison. Yeah. Especially when someone turned off the faucet. A couple months later, it was revealed that the parents had sold the car. The loan seemed to be tied to the income from the house. I didn't find out about it from them. From a bank notice that came to my former address. I did the only thing I had to do. I forwarded it back with the notation, addressee moved. Neighbors started saying hello. Some brought baked goods, some just nodded. I was no longer a shadow rolling in for the holidays. I was a person with a key. That, as it turned out, felt right. I bought a new teapot. Put a chair by the window. Started getting up without an alarm clock. Stopped thinking I owed anyone an explanation. There was one night's silence, only rain. I was sitting on the floor among the boxes. An old photograph in my hands before all this fuss. There was my grandfather, me, and a piece of cake we'd baked together. I sat with that picture for half an hour. Then I got up. I hung it on the wall. Someone was living in that house again. Only now it was me. Sometimes in the evenings I'd go out on the veranda with tea, and just watch the day go by. No thoughts. No plans. No obligations to other people's expectations. Silence used to feel like a punishment. Now it's become a space. Finally, the emptiness was no longer a hole. It became air. I didn't feel defeated. It felt like me. It's much harder and much quieter. I didn't seek justice. I simply stopped participating in the farce. I stopped asking for the love that was always given on interest. I didn't want to be comfortable anymore. I wanted to be real. The way my grandfather had always seen me. I put up another picture. Just of me. Keys in hand at the front door. Not to show off, but to remind myself. I'm back. Not to them. To myself. One evening a letter arrived. Mother's handwriting. Short. I'm sorry you chose loneliness. I didn't reply. Because it wasn't loneliness. It was finally presence. Family isn't genetics. It's a choice. And I chose me. A lot of people think a breakup is about screaming, slamming doors, and tearing up pictures. No. Sometimes a breakup is when you just stop showing up. You stop explaining. You stop carrying other people's excuses as if they were your own. There are no other people's voices in this house now. No pressure. No invisible ledger where your existence is recorded in the liabilities. It's just me here. And that's enough. If one day someone asks me why I did all this, I'll just say, because no one else had the right to do it. If this story resonated with you, subscribe. Too many of us have endured in silence what it's time to speak out loud.